All right, mate. Well, let's start off with coaches.
Yep.
First off, Tommy Trebojevic has been shifted into the centres, and the shift has been labelled as disrespectful amid claims that the Manly star isn't happy with the switch and wasn't properly consulted. This was an act by Seabold to move Lehi Hopewadi into the number one jersey. And he's not sure if it's going to be a permanent switch moving forward. Apparently, Tommy hasn't been given any info about this. It just happened. He just found out about it. What do you think of coaches making these switches, especially this one right here with someone that has been so loyal to the club over all those years?
I think the switch is needed.
Yes, but I think as a player, I would want to be consulted. Is that even the word?
Yeah.
I'd want to be spoken to. I'm like, hey, you have a sit down, casual coffee. Hey, let's go have a look. What's going on? We're seeing it. This is what we want to do. Let's talk it out.
They did
I
that.
think from a respectful.
And the thing is, they did that. So to provide a little more context, Manly have their half-yearly review.
Yeah.
Now, everyone's saying it was because of the fact that they lost to Gold Coast and Newcastle in successive weeks. But they just had it booked in from the beginning of the season anyway. But the move for Tommy Turbo to the centres is needed, and I believe it's important because what people need to understand is Tommy Turbo isn't playing well. That's the reality is if he was playing well enough, he'd be in Origin.
Yeah.
The reality is he's not playing well.
Yeah.
He's been hampered by a lot of injuries.
Yeah.
And there's talk that Manly have actually covered the fact that he copped another hammy injury with a groin complaint because they don't want anyone blowing up at the fact that he did his hammy again. The reason for the switch is because Hopewadi's in form and Turbo's lacking confidence.
Yeah.
They had a discussion. Obviously, Turbo's not happy. He came out, he talked about how unhappy he is about it. And I think that what Turbo needs to understand is that it's not an individual sport.
Yeah.
You know, you got to do what's best for the team. Team comes first always. Yeah. And I get it. On his day, he's one of the best fullbacks. On his day.
Yeah.
We haven't seen that from him in a while. He's been hampered by so many injuries. But this is a shift where... But you got to understand, Seabold's also under pressure to keep his job. Because you lose back-to-back weeks against two of probably the worst teams in the comp in attack. And even in general. And mainly in the beginning of the season, were considered to be premiership contenders. That raises a lot of alarm bells. So Seabold's under pressure.
Yeah.
The club's under pressure. They've got to make decisions. You know, Jason Saab was dropped on the weekend to Cup during their bye weekend. Him, Croker, to get some game time in them because Seabold's like, something needs to change.
Yeah.
You can't keep doing the same thing over and over expecting a different result.
Yeah.
So in a position like this, I'm all for Turbo moving to centres to get his confidence back. I don't believe it'll be a permanent thing. But you can't ignore what Leha Hopewadi's done at fullback as well.
He's been having a killer season.
Yeah, he's been doing really, really well.
What is he? Is he even 20?
I think he would have just turned 20.
Pretty young.
He's very young. Very young. And he's had a killer of a season. But, Ray, at the beginning of that, you mentioned coaches, right?
Yeah.
You talked about how, like you talked about with coaches, like they make big decisions like this. I think people need to sort of follow in the steps that Seabold has followed and apply a bit of common sense. Coaches, I believe, today are lacking common sense. And I'll put it to you like this. And the reason I say that is because when you look at a side like Newcastle, Newcastle have struggled all year in attack. Sorry, Joe. I know you're a big Newey fan. I'm sorry, mate.
I've accepted it.
I know. So I'm going to take some dog shots at your club because they're pathetic.
No one hates their coach more than this guy.
Yeah, well, that's true. That's also true. But we talk about common sense. And Joe, I want to get your input on this as well. We talk about common sense in the sense that we, as viewers... When we see a performance go down, we think changes are needed to be had, right?
Yeah.
And like, okay. And obviously, if you look at it one game, okay, maybe give it a bit, but then 2 or 3 weeks in and there's still no changes. We as the viewers go, something needs to change.
Yeah.
We look at Newcastle. Jackson Hastings is only playing his second game this week. He's their best 7 option.
I forgot about him.
Yeah. A lot of people have. But the reason is because O'Brien is so stubborn in his ways that he's named so many different halves combos and move players out of positions to play in the halves rather than put Hastings there. Joe, when it comes to the Knights, do you believe Hastings is your best 7?
Well, right now, yes. Like, when you see the options that we have, we don't have a lot. And look, on the 10-game run, who was our 7? Hastings.
Yeah.
He did drop in form last year, sure, which is why he got dropped Cup, but give him a shot. He's on a lot of money. Why are we wasting him in the reserves? I know we don't want him past this year. We're not re-signing him. Fine. We are garbage.
Yeah.
We cannot score points. Get this guy in.
Yeah.
what's it gonna hurt? Oh, he doesn't do well. No one is. Cogger's doing horrible.
Yeah.
Gamble gets hurt every game.
Yeah.
Sharp's good, but he's got no kicking game. He's young. He's a runner.
Sharp's gone for a while now, though.
Yeah, he's out for the year. Yeah, that's right.
Spleen and
Kidney.
Yeah.
Maybe you should help him, Joe.
Classic. But in the sense like that, like we talk about, you know, when players aren't committed to the club and then like you drop them, like we spoke about Galvin in our last podcast. But in this case, when we realise that Hastings is the best option for Newcastle at 7 and they refuse to go down that road, I don't understand why it's so hard to go down the road of picking Hastings at 7. They blame off-field incidents. They blame, the partners of the players did this and that. But at the end of the day, you don't care about that stuff. No. You need to get results on the field. Seabold's trying to get results on the field.
Yeah.
But you look at like a team like Newcastle that need Hastings at 7. You look at a side like the Dragons.
Yeah.
They're not dropping Flanagan. It's a joke.
Yeah.
You know? They've dropped Ilias, and I'm not sitting here saying Ilias is the best 7 of all time. He's not that amazing and flash either. But when you do something consistently and you get the same result, something's got to change, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Since they've dropped Ilias to Cup, it's been 2 months. They've won 8 on the trot. Dragons Junior Cup side have won 8 on the trot. Him and Jonah Glover have won 8 on the trot for the Dragons New South Wales Cup side.
Why don't they bring him into first grade?
And that's where my problem is that this is a problem I have, is that coaches are lacking the common sense that the average viewer is seeing.
Yeah.
Now, there's also nepotism involved because Shane Flanagan is his son Kyle at 7 and he's come out in defending him when we really know he is a problem.
Yeah.
And then you got like the Cowboys, for example, who were going pretty well to start the year. They were doing okay. And then they dropped Clifford to move Purdue to 6. Since that's happened, they won, I think, 2 weeks ago by 6. They almost lost to Tigers at home.
Yeah.
And then they got pumped by the Roosters.
Yeah.
And they got pumped 1 or 2 other times as well. They haven't been playing good footy.
No.
And then up until this week, Payton was refusing to change, saying Clifford's on the outer. We don't think he'll be re-signed next year.
Interesting.
But at the end of the day, he was getting you the results.
Yeah.
So that's the problem I have with coaches nowadays, is that when they make changes, like Seabold's made a change to Jabojevic in the centres to try to get his confidence back because his job is also on the line. There's a bit of a wake-up call there.
Yeah.
But when we see things that should be happening that aren't happening, it's so frustrating. Flanagan should be dropping his son, Kyle.
Yeah.
Kyle shouldn't be playing 7. When was the last time he played 7 that was actually decent? It was at the Sharks, wasn't it?
Probably. Roosters, he wasn't anything. Bulldogs, don't get me started.
Yeah, don't even start on the Dogs.
Yeah, probably it was back at the Sharks. How many years ago was that?
Yeah, like maybe 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah.
So my problem, with maybe 6 years ago. So the problem I have is that coaches lack common sense.
Yeah.
And when they should be playing players that should be in there, they don't. And then when they don't play the players that should be in there, like it makes no sense. So this is the thing I have at the moment. Good on Seabold for actually making a change. Obviously, again, his job's on the line. But good in for making a change to try change something up in the side because you know something hasn't worked.
Yeah.
And they've lost to the 2 worst teams in the comp this year.
Yeah.
You have to change it up.
Sometimes you have to. Even Serraldo last year with the Bulldogs, right? We're very passionate Bulldog supporters. Yep. And we were looking at that halves pairing, Burton and Hutchison. And for the life of us, we could not figure out why every week Hutchison was getting named.
Yeah.
Like, yes, okay, we were winning, but we weren't winning by a lot. We were winning by the skin of our teeth. Hutchison was not playing well. We had Sexton in Cup who was playing well. And then I think it was because Hutchison got injured. Sexton came in and we won. We had a killer back end of that season last year.
Yeah.
And then it's clicked. Okay. And then we do that. Same thing even with our fullback, right? When we had Tracy and what's his name? And Taff, right? I was like, man, Tracy for sure gets the call up over Taff. But no, we kept Taff every week. And then it wasn't until he got injured that Tracy's come in. And now look, Tracy's the starter and has been for the last year and a half now.
Yeah.
So I think okay, yes, when you do make change, when change is needed, you need to make it.
Yeah. And I feel like that's where coaches are lacking nowadays.
Yeah.
When they need to make the right calls.
Yeah. It's almost like they wait for something bad to happen to then make that change.
And it's like they're putting themselves under pressure for no reason.
Yeah.
What's the point of them putting themselves under this amount of pressure for the sake of nepotism or for the sake of stubbornness? Because it makes no sense.
No.
Because you see the hundreds of comments every week on, like, you go on like Facebook, for example, and you look at the losing team's post. I've been doing it for the Dragons for the last...
Have you seen that one Lebo guy.
Yeah, Jean-Claude.
About the Dragons.
It is so funny.
It is hilarious.
It's hilarious, but he's right.
Yeah, it's true.
He's not wrong in what he's saying. In the content that he's bringing out, he's not wrong. He's extremely passionate.
Yes,
Don't get me
very,
wrong.
very passionate.
Very passionate.
That's
Did you watch the one he did on Lomax?
Yeah, I watched it.
Where he kicks it and he runs,
Yeah,
he runs
yeah.
out the side. He's
Mate,
like,
the fact
"No
that he
edit."
nailed it. Yeah. And then he starts losing it.
Yeah.
But they're passionate, and they're passionate for a reason because they want to see change.
Yeah.
And when your coach is stubborn and naming the same halves combo for months on end, I get why it's so frustrating. Like you said, we did the same thing with Hacho and Berto and the halves, and then we also had the same blow up with Tracy and Taff. Like, so when coaches need to make the decisions, they don't. When they don't make decisions, like they need it. Just I don't understand. But look, the turbo move, it has to work. Something has to change. It'll put Scarrick to the wing. Tommy Tadeu's on the wing this week. Jason Starr goes to the cup again. He's to sign there for the next 4 years, but it's talking about it talks about the change that need to be made because they need to win games. At the end of the day, your best 17 have to be on the park. And if any member is not, New South Wales Cup's there for a reason. You elevate the talent that are playing well, and you drop the talent that aren't playing well to bring that confidence up. So that's what I take on the whole coaching spiel there.